Mazar's hunt for the House of David isn't over yet. Next on her agenda is the palace of King Solomon, just north of this wall. Renowned for his wisdom, wealth, and monumental achievements such as the construction of the first temple in Jerusalem, King Solomon remains a central figure in Jewish, Christian, and Muslim traditions. Revered as a just king and prophet, his reign is celebrated for its prosperity and cultural impact, with his temple standing as a symbol of divine favor and religious devotion. Despite his significant contributions, the search for his remains and tangible evidence of his grand structures, especially the temple, has persisted for centuries. But now, the moment of truth is here. King Solomon's tomb has been opened after 3,000 years, and what they found inside shocked everyone. But first, let's get some context: the history and legend of King Solomon. Solomon was a legendary figure in ancient Israel, celebrated for his wisdom, wealth, and power. As the son and successor of King David, Solomon was the penultimate ruler of a united Israel and Judah from around 970 to 931 BC. Under his leadership, Israel reached a pinnacle of prosperity and cultural achievement. Solomon is also credited with the construction of the first temple in Jerusalem, a monumental project dedicated to Yahweh, the God of Israel. Solomon is revered in Jewish tradition as one of the 48 prophets, and his wisdom is highlighted in various biblical accounts where he is depicted as a just and insightful ruler. Naturally, finding his final resting place has been a quest driven by both historical curiosity and religious zeal. But let's take a look at the man at the heart of the legend first. Solomon was born in Jerusalem as the second child of King David and Bathsheba, who had previously been the wife of Uriah the Hittite. Solomon's birth followed a tragic and morally complex chapter in David's life. The first child born to David and Bathsheba, conceived while Bathsheba was still married to Uriah, died just 7 days after birth. This is seen as divine judgment for David's actions. David had attempted to conceal his adulterous affair by orchestrating Uriah's death on the battlefield, which ultimately allowed David to marry Bathsheba openly. However, David did repent before God and was forgiven. Thus, Solomon, whose name means peace, was born. Solomon had 3 full brothers, Nathan, Shammua, and Shobab, born to Bathsheba, as well as 6 older half-brothers from David's other wives. Solomon's birth is seen as a pivotal moment in David's life, symbolizing both forgiveness and the restoration of favor with God. As David aged and his health declined, he could not stay warm, prompting his attendants to seek out a beautiful young woman, Abishag the Shunammite, to care for him. Despite her close service to the king, she was only a caretaker rather than a concubine. But the kingdom had bigger problems. David's frailty meant that internal power struggles emerged within the royal court. Adonijah, the eldest surviving son and presumed heir, moved to secure the throne for himself. However, his ambitions were thwarted by Bathsheba and the prophet Nathan. Together, they reminded David of his earlier promise to make Solomon king, ultimately persuading him to publicly declare Solomon as his successor, despite Solomon being younger than his brothers. Upon ascending the throne, 15-year-old Solomon acted decisively to secure his reign. He carried out a series of purges, targeting key figures who might oppose his rule, including Job, David's former general. Solomon further solidified his power by strategically placing loyal friends in critical positions across the military, religious, and civil sectors. Under Solomon's rule, Israel saw significant military and economic expansion. He bolstered the kingdom's military, particularly its cavalry and chariot forces, and established colonies that served both as trading posts and military outposts. Solomon also cultivated and maintained lucrative trade relationships, notably continuing his father David's alliance with King Hiram I of Tyre. This partnership led to joint ventures to distant lands such as Tarshish and Ophir, bringing back luxury goods including gold, silver, sandalwood, pearls, ivory, apes, and peacocks. These ventures, along with his other economic activities, made Solomon the wealthiest of Israel's kings mentioned in the Bible. Solomon is also renowned in the Bible as the epitome of wisdom. In a dream, God invited Solomon to request anything he desired. Solomon, prioritizing the well-being of his people over personal gain, asked for wisdom to rule and guide them justly. Impressed by Solomon's selflessness, God granted him extraordinary wisdom. The most famous story illustrating Solomon's wisdom is the Judgment of Solomon, where 2 women claimed to be the mother of the same child. Solomon's solution to this dispute was both shocking and ingenious. He proposed that the child be cut in half, with each woman receiving a portion. This immediately revealed the true mother, as one woman renounced her claim to save the child's life. Solomon thus declared her to be the real mother and awarded her the child. Beyond his wisdom, Solomon's reign is marked by immense wealth and grandeur. The Hebrew Bible recounts that the kingdom of Israel reached its zenith in terms of splendor and prosperity under Solomon's 40-year rule. In 1 year alone, Solomon is said to have accumulated 666 talents, or approximately 18,000 kilograms of gold, as tribute. Solomon surrounded himself with the luxuries befitting an Eastern monarch, and his administration flourished. His ally Hiram I, king of Tyre, played a crucial role in supporting Solomon's numerous ambitious projects, including the construction of the first temple in Jerusalem. In the final years of his life, King David was dedicated to gathering materials for the construction of a grand temple in Jerusalem, intended as a permanent dwelling for Yahweh and the Ark of the Covenant. After David's death, Solomon took on the monumental task of building this temple. The temple's construction reflected Solomon's commitment to his father's vision and his own dedication to his faith. Following the completion of the temple, Solomon continued to make his mark on Jerusalem by erecting several other significant buildings. For 13 years, he oversaw the construction of a royal palace on Ophel, a prominent hill in central Jerusalem. This complex included a series of structures, each with its own distinct purpose and grandeur. Among these were the House of the Forest of Lebanon, the Hall or Port of Pillars, the Hall of the Throne, also known as the Hall of Justice, as well as his personal residence and a residence for his wife, the Pharaoh's daughter. Solomon's throne was described as exceptionally opulent, featuring moving parts that made it one of the earliest examples of mechanical devices in history. Additionally, Solomon undertook the construction of extensive waterworks for Jerusalem and bolstered the city's defenses. Beyond Jerusalem, Solomon expanded his construction efforts throughout Israel. He is credited with rebuilding cities and establishing key locations such as the port of Ezion-Geber and Palmyra, a commercial depot and military outpost in the wilderness. Although the exact site of Ezion-Geber is known, no physical remains have been discovered. However, significant archaeological findings have been made in cities like Hazor, Megiddo, and Gezer, which Solomon is said to have fortified or rebuilt. These sites feature substantial ancient remains, including impressive six-chambered gates and ashlar palaces. During Solomon's reign, Israel experienced a period of exceptional commercial prosperity. The Bible describes an extensive network of trade routes, both by land with Tyre, Egypt, and Arabia, and by sea with distant regions such as Tarshish, Ophir, and possibly South India. This trade network brought wealth and luxury to Israel, further enhancing Solomon's reputation as a wise and prosperous ruler. According to the biblical narrative, Solomon's reign was marked by his extensive marriage alliances, which included 700 wives and 300 concubines. These wives were primarily foreign princesses, representing various nations, including Moab, Ammon, Edom, Sidon, and the Hittites, along with the daughter of the Pharaoh of Egypt. The marriage to Pharaoh's daughter is often viewed as a strategic political alliance, strengthening ties between Israel and Egypt. However, Solomon's affection for his numerous wives and concubines is noted in the scriptures as being driven by love, which ultimately led to significant religious compromises. Among his many wives, only Naamah the Ammonite, the mother of his successor Rehoboam, is mentioned by name in the Bible. The biblical account criticizes Solomon for allowing his foreign wives to bring their deities into Israel, leading to the construction of temples dedicated to gods like Ashtoreth and Molech. This is seen as a direct violation of the religious commandments laid out in the scriptures. Purity that was expected of the Israelite king. According to the traditional narrative, Solomon descended into idolatry due to the influence of his foreign wives. This story was probably designed to explain and justify the division between the northern kingdom of Israel and the southern kingdom of Judah, attributing the schism to Solomon's alleged misdeeds. Moving on, one of the most notable events in Solomon's life was his encounter with the Queen of Sheba. The Queen of Sheba, who ruled a distant land, housed curiosity about Solomon's famed wisdom and wealth. This led her to journey to his court with a lavish caravan of gifts, including gold, spices, and precious stones. The Bible states that Solomon granted the queen all her desire, whatsoever she asked, after which she departed satisfied with her visit. Sheba is traditionally identified with the ancient kingdom of Saba, which spanned both sides of the Red Sea, including parts of what are now Yemen, Eritrea, Somalia, and Ethiopia. The exact location of Sheba has been debated, with some sources placing it in northern Ethiopia and Eritrea. The story of the Queen of Sheba has been expanded in various traditions, including rabbinical literature, Ethiopian law, and classical accounts. According to one version, Solomon possessed the ability to command animals, and upon summoning a hoopoe bird, learned of a distant, wealthy land ruled by the Queen of Sheba. Solomon then sent the bird to invite the queen to his court. The Ethiopian account, most notably found in the 14th century text Kebra Nagast goes further, claiming that the Queen of Sheba and Solomon had a son together, Menelik I, who became the first emperor of the Aksumite kingdom. According to this tradition, Menelik was a devout Jew and was given a replica of the Ark of the Covenant by Solomon. It is said that the original Ark was secretly taken to Aksum in Ethiopia, where it remains to this day, guarded by a dedicated priest. This claim of a divine lineage and the possession of the Ark has been a significant source of legitimacy for the Ethiopian monarchy, profoundly influencing Ethiopian culture and history. Despite numerous requests, the Ethiopian Church has consistently refused to allow anyone to view the alleged Ark. However, contrasting this Ethiopian tradition, some classical-era rabbis argued that the Queen of Sheba's son was not Menelik but rather an ancestor of Nebuchadnezzar II, the Babylonian king who would eventually destroy Solomon's temple some 300 years later. Jewish scribes attribute Solomon's early restraint from marrying foreign wives to his teacher, Shammai ben Jair, who played a significant role in guiding him. As long as Shammai was alive, Solomon did not marry Pharaoh's daughter. However, once Solomon executed Shammai due to a breach of trust, he began to stray into the very sins he had been warned against. Solomon's foreign wives led him astray, turning his heart towards their own gods and resulting in Solomon building temples for these deities. This act of idolatry incurred the wrath of God, as Solomon's actions directly violated the commandments of God. The commandments warned against a king multiplying horses, wives, and wealth. Solomon's collection of 666 talents of gold annually, an exorbitant sum for Israel, and his acquisition of vast numbers of horses and chariots, particularly from Egypt, exemplified his descent into sin and his symbolic return of Israel to Egypt. Solomon's descent into idolatry, marked by his worship of deities like Ashtoreth and Milcom, was seen as a grave offense that ultimately led to divine retribution. God's anger towards Solomon was severe because Solomon had turned away from him despite having been visited by God twice and commanded to remain faithful. As a result, God decreed that the kingdom would be torn from Solomon's lineage after his death, though not entirely out of respect for Solomon's father, David. God's judgment would manifest in the division of the kingdom during the reign of Solomon's son, with only one tribe remaining under his rule for the sake of Jerusalem and David's legacy. In the later years of his reign, Solomon faced several adversaries which compounded his troubles. These included Hadad of Edom, Rezon of Zobah, and even his own official, Jeroboam, from the tribe of Ephraim. These enemies, both external and internal, symbolized the consequences of Solomon's spiritual decline. The unraveling of Solomon's once great kingdom was a direct consequence of his departure from the path laid out by God. In any case, King Solomon stands as a towering figure in biblical history, renowned primarily for his role as the builder of the first temple in Jerusalem and as the last monarch of the United Kingdom of Israel. His reign, which lasted 40 years, is often regarded as the zenith of Israel's power and prosperity. He passed away at approximately 55 years of age, dying of natural causes after a lengthy and influential rule. Upon Solomon's death, the unity of the kingdom was abruptly shattered. His son Rehoboam ascended to the throne, but his rule was met with significant opposition from 10 of the 12 tribes of Israel. This dissent led to the division of the monarchy, with Jeroboam establishing the northern kingdom of Israel and Rehoboam ruling over the southern kingdom of Judah. This division marked the end of the United Kingdom and ushered in an era of separation and conflict that would persist throughout subsequent history. While Solomon's temple was destroyed, his quarries or mines have long remained a subject of fascination for people. Let's take a look at these now. The modern-day significance of Solomon's quarries, also known as Zedekiah's Cave, lies in their vast and intriguing underground limestone structure located beneath the Muslim quarter of the Old City of Jerusalem. Spanning approximately 5 acres, or 20,000 square meters, this ancient quarry stretches the length of 5 city blocks, representing a significant remnant of the largest quarry ever established in Jerusalem. The entrance to Zedekiah's cave is positioned just beneath the old city wall, nestled between the Damascus Gate and the Herod Gate. Upon entering the cave, visitors are greeted by a dramatic descent into a vast auditorium-like chamber. This expansive space boasts high ceilings and remarkable acoustics. The cave's unique atmosphere is enhanced by the presence of Zedekiah's tears, a natural phenomenon where drops of water trickle through the ceiling, adding to the site's mystique. Beyond this central chamber, the quarry unfolds into a network of artificial galleries meticulously hewn by ancient stone cutters. These galleries exhibit a variety of chaotic and sometimes bizarre patterns and formations shaped by centuries of quarrying activity. The cave's intricate layout includes numerous paths that provide access to its many corners, requiring at least 30 minutes to explore thoroughly. Visitors can observe chisel marks throughout the quarry, indicating the extensive labor involved in its creation. In some areas, massive, nearly finished building blocks remain embedded in the rock, left by the stone cutters long ago. These remnants offer a glimpse into the quarry's historical significance and its role in ancient construction projects. The cave walls also bear inscriptions and graffiti from various periods, including Arabic, Greek, Armenian, and English markings such as, "We Blackstone January 1889. Several informational plaques have been mounted along the walls to elucidate the myriad legends and historical accounts associated with the site. Zedekiah's cave extends approximately 650 feet, or 200 meters, from the entrance to its farthest point. It features a maximum width of around 330 feet, or 100 meters, and a general depth of about 30 feet, or 9.1 meters, below the street level of the Muslim quarter, though it includes several lower levels and blocked tunnels, adding to its enigmatic allure. The natural entrance of Zedekiah's cave is the only part of the cave that remains uncarved. The rest of its interior was meticulously hewn over thousands of years. This extensive quarry was utilized by Herod the Great for construction projects, notably including the renovation of the temple and its retaining walls, which now form what is known as the Wailing Wall. Stone from this quarry may have also been employed in the building projects of Herod Agrippa I. The quarry's subterranean environment allowed for its use regardless of seasonal or weather conditions, enhancing its utility over time. In the 16th century, Solmon the Magnificent, the Ottoman Sultan responsible for the current walls around the Old City, also mined the quarry. However, he sealed it up around 1540 due to security concerns. It was not until 1854 that the American missionary James Turner Barclay rediscovered the cave following rumors of a cavern near the Damascus Gate. With the assistance of his dog, Barclay and his sons explored the cave secretly at night during the Emir. German religious sect occupied the cave, but they were later evacuated by the German consul in Jerusalem due to illness caused by the cave's damp and unsanitary conditions. Earlier, in 1873, French archaeologist Charles Clermont Ganneau uncovered a crude carving of a winged creature in a small niche within the cave, which is now marked by a plaque. In 1907, some minor quarrying was carried out to obtain stone for the Ottoman clock tower over the Jaffa Gate. The cave fell into relative obscurity until the 1920s, when it began to attract tourists. In the late 20th century, the East Jerusalem Development Corporation undertook restorations, and in the mid-1980s, the Jerusalem Foundation constructed paths and installed lighting. According to local law, Zedekiah's cave is reputed to have served as a quarry for the construction of King Solomon's first temple. The quarry's Melik limestone, known for its strength, suitability for carving, and resistance to erosion, is believed to have been used in royal buildings. The term, Melik, is derived from Hebrew and Arabic words meaning kingly or royal. The cave is also linked to the legend of King Zedekiah, a Judean king from the 6th century BC and a descendant of King Solomon. Zedekiah is said to have used the cave as a refuge during the Babylonian siege of Jerusalem. However, his escape ended in tragedy when the Babylonian forces breached the city walls. Zedekiah and his men attempted to flee by night through a secret tunnel or cave leading toward the plains of Jericho, but they were pursued and captured near Jericho. After being caught, Zedekiah was brought before King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon in Riblah, where he witnessed the execution of his sons before his own eyes were put out, leaving him blind. He was then bound in chains and taken to Babylon, where he remained in captivity until his death, marking the end of the Davidic line's reign in Judah. Coming back to the quarries, Masonic ceremonies have been a tradition at Zedekiah's cave since the 1860s. According to Masonic ritual, King Solomon is regarded as the first Grand Master. In 1868, a ceremony was conducted by a past Grand Master from Kentucky. The cave also hosted the first Masonic lodge in the Holy Land, the Royal Solomon Mother Lodge No. 293, which held its inaugural meeting on May 7, 1873. The cave is highly esteemed by Freemasons in Israel, regarded as one of the most sacred sites in Masonic history. The Supreme Grand Royal Arch Chapter of the State of Israel notes that the site holds special meaning, particularly for Mark Masons and Royal Arch Masons. During the British Mandate in the 1920s, the cave was used for Mark Mason ceremonies. Although this tradition was interrupted from 1948 to 1968, it resumed with renewed significance in 1969 when the Supreme Grand Royal Arch Chapter of the State of Israel conducted a ceremonial consecration. Since then, the Mark degree has been performed in the cave approximately once a year. On May 10, 2015, the cave hosted a Masonic initiation ceremony for a visiting delegation from the Grand Lodge of California to the Grand Lodge of Israel. Now, let's explore Solomon's final resting place. The search for the burial site of King Solomon has intrigued historians, archaeologists, and theologians for centuries. The most commonly cited location for Solomon's burial is the city of David, an ancient part of Jerusalem traditionally associated with the royal family of the Judean monarchy. The Bible suggests that Solomon was buried in the city of David alongside his ancestors, though it does not specify the exact location within this area. This region, which encompasses the southern part of modern Jerusalem, was the center of the ancient kingdom and is known for its historical and religious significance. Another prominent site linked to Solomon is the Temple Mount, where the first temple once stood. The Temple Mount is one of the most revered locations in Jerusalem, currently home to the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque. This site holds immense historical and religious importance, and some traditions suggest that Solomon's tomb may be located within or near the area of the ancient temple. However, the Temple Mount's current status as a religiously sensitive area and its complex archaeological layers make it challenging to explore and excavate for potential burial sites. Several other locations have been proposed as possible burial sites for Solomon, including the area around the Mount of Olives. Various caves and tombs in and around Jerusalem have been linked to the search for Solomon's tomb. Some legends suggest that Solomon's tomb might be hidden within the intricate network of underground tunnels and caves beneath the city, including those in the Kidron Valley. The reputed Tomb of the Kings, located near the Kidron Valley, has been suggested by some as a possible site due to its grandeur and historical significance, though it is more commonly associated with other members of the Judean royal family. The search has been complicated by the destruction and rebuilding that has occurred in Jerusalem over millennia, which has obscured many historical layers. Additionally, religious and political sensitivities surrounding Jerusalem's sacred sites have posed significant challenges to archaeological exploration and excavation for centuries. The quest to uncover the remains of Solomon's temple, the legendary sanctuary described in the Bible as one of King Solomon's greatest achievements, has proven elusive. However, some key archaeological finds have given us a fresh perspective. In 2014, Jimmy Hardin and his team discovered 6 clay bulla seals at Khirbet Summerli, east of Gaza, which they dated to the 10th century BC. These bulli are the only known examples from this period and offer some support for the historical existence of David and Solomon as described in the biblical texts. Recent findings, such as silver hoards discovered in Phoenicia in 2013, align with the biblical account of Solomon's wealth. These hoards provide material evidence of significant wealth and trade connections, supporting the notion that Solomon's kingdom had access to considerable resources. Additionally, the distribution of fortified cities between Phoenicia and Galilee during the Iron Age provides context for Solomon's interactions with Hiram of Tyre. This distribution also indicates Solomon's political leverage and strategic priorities, which were later preserved in historical accounts. However, the historicity of King Solomon remains a contentious issue among scholars. The current consensus suggests that while the biblical portrayal of Solomon's wealth and kingdom is likely anachronistic, a historical Solomon probably did exist. However, the depiction of Solomon's reign as a grand empire is considered exaggerated by many scholars. Some archaeologists argue that Solomon could have been a ruler or chieftain of Judah rather than a monarch of a unified kingdom. Others counter this by supporting the notion of a unified monarchy in the 10th century BC but still acknowledge the exaggerations in the biblical narrative. Historical evidence for Solomon outside of biblical texts is sparse. The 1st century scholar Josephus referenced records from Tyre mentioning King Hiram I's assistance to Solomon for temple construction. Yet no definitive archaeological evidence from Solomon's reign has been found. Excavations at sites like Hazor, Megiddo, Bethshean, and Gezer have revealed structures some attribute to Solomon, but others argue these are from the Omride period, over a century later. In the Bible Unearthed Finkelstein and Silberman contend that Jerusalem in Solomon's time was likely a small city-state with insufficient population and resources to sustain an empire as described in the Bible. They argue that the extensive tribute and grand scale of Solomon's achievements are implausible, suggesting that the Bible's authors, driven by religious bias, may have minimized the achievements of later rulers such as the Omrides in favor of an idealized portrayal of an earlier Golden Age. Some minimalists, like Thomas L. Thompson, argue that Jerusalem only developed into a significant city-state in the mid-7th century BC. This view extends to skepticism about the grandiose claims regarding Solomon's temple. However, supporters of the biblical description of Solomon argue that while some claims might seem exaggerated, the general portrayal of Solomon's wealth and wisdom is credible. André Lemay, in Ancient Israel, From Abraham to the Roman Destruction of the Temple maintains that the core elements of Solomon's narrative are reliable. For instance, the discovery of cinnamon in 10th century BC Phoenician clay flasks suggests that trade with South Asia may have occurred earlier than previously believed. Kenneth Kitchen argues for a more expansive view, suggesting that Solomon's kingdom was a relatively affluent, mini-empire, rather than a mere city-state. He considers the 666 talents of gold mentioned in the Bible as plausible evidence of Solomon's wealth. The Bible describes Solomon's wealth to be a modest sum compared to other historical accumulations, such as the 1,180 tons of gold taken by Alexander the Great. Kenneth Kitchen contends that the description of Solomon's temple aligns with typical structures of the time and region. Similarly, William Dever asserts that archaeological finds provide parallels for every feature of the Solomonic temple as described in the Bible, supporting the view that Solomon's grand temple and wealth might have a basis in historical reality. Some scholars adopt a balanced perspective between the minimalist view, which argues that Solomon might be a completely fictional character, and the maximalist view, which supports the biblical account of his grandeur. Abraham Faust, for instance, suggests that while the biblical descriptions of Solomon's wealth and accomplishments might be exaggerated and reflect later periods, there is evidence that Solomon ruled over a larger region than just Jerusalem. Faust's archaeological work in areas like Sharon indicates that commerce in these regions was substantial enough to imply the presence of a larger polity, likely under Jerusalem's influence. Similarly, Lester Grab posits that there was indeed a ruler in Jerusalem during this era, and that he probably constructed a temple, though the town was relatively small. William G. Dever concurs with this view, arguing that while Solomon's reign over Israel and the construction of a temple are plausible, the accounts of his opulence and military conquests are likely exaggerated. This nuanced approach allows for the recognition of historical elements within the biblical narrative while acknowledging the potential embellishments and anachronisms. Long story short, Solomon is widely accepted as a historical figure. His final resting place is most likely within the ancient city of David near Jerusalem. This location matters because it connects to the rich heritage of the biblical narrative, holding deep religious significance for Jews, Christians, and Muslims alike, and continuing to inspire quests for understanding and discovery. Well, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Did you like this video? If you did, please consider liking, dropping a comment, and hitting the subscribe button so that you don't miss out on our new uploads. Also, don't miss this video you see on your screen right now, it's truly unbelievable, D1880s.